Why is depression permitted to exist? Some have suggested that there cannot be a loving God given all of the suffering in the world. What they really mean, though, is that they do not believe a loving God would allow us to make choices. Far from proving that there is no God, what they demonstrate is that God has different objectives and goals than we do. And thank goodness he does. He sees the big picture. He sees in our anguish things that we do not. I'd like to discuss this by means of a parable. This is the story of a 10-year-old girl named Anna. Anna lived in a small Central American city. She was a bright and fun-loving girl. She also had a personal challenge in her life in that she was blind. At the age of 3, a terrible illness left her entirely without sight. Now, 7 years later, when she really tried, she could just barely remember what it was like to live in a world with light and color. Despite the fact that she was blind, it was very evident to her parents and others that Anna had a sharp mind, and they made sure she was able to attend the local schoolhouse. The school had limited resources and no materials at all for the blind. But Anna was able to glean much just by listening, and she loved her school. Anna's school was nestled against the side of a mountain, a volcanic mountain. One day, without warning, while Anna was at school, a blast from the volcano sent countless tons of ash into the sky, blocking out the light of the sun. In the distance, the town's emergency alarm system could be heard. Evacuate. Evacuate to the church on the hill. The church on the hill was a prominent landmark on the other side of town, elevated enough and distant enough from the volcano that authorities determined it would be a safe place to congregate in case of volcanic activity. It would be outside the range of mudslides from the volcano's unstable slopes. Sure enough, within moments, the mudslides came and knocked out most electrical power to the city. The siren in the distance went silent. The school had limited emergency supplies and no flashlights or matches at all. With ash blocking out the light of the sun and now their electrical power gone, those in the school found themselves in total darkness. The teachers were genuinely afraid. They knew that at any moment another mudslide could kill them all. They knew where they needed to go, but unable to even see their hand in front of their face, they had no idea how to get there, much less with 200 children in tow. Children were crying and praying when Anna spoke up. "Come with me. I know the way." The darkness was disorienting to everyone else, but Anna had walked to school in total darkness every day for 4 years. Anna took the hand of one of the teachers, who took the hand of one of the students, who in turn took the hand of another student, and so on, forming a human chain. And Anna led them on their way, warning them of steps up and steps down along the path and tripping hazards they could not see. The message was passed down the chain. Occasionally they heard someone in the distance, trapped in darkness, calling for help. "Come with us," the children called out. "Anna knows the way." And so their group grew. Now Anna did not know how to get from the school to the church. She had never walked that way. But she did know how to get from the school to her home, and from her home to the church, so that is the way they went. When they reached Anna's home, they found several members of her family there, also trapped in the darkness, hoping to wait things out there. "No," the teacher said, "we're too close to the volcano. It isn't safe here. Come with us. Anna knows the way." And so they came. So did the neighbors, and Anna led them on their way. A few minutes later, there was another tremor from the volcano and another mudslide. This one buried the school, Anna's home, and her neighborhood. But there was no one in its path because Anna had led them out of harm's way. In total that day, some 300 people walked several miles, in total darkness most of that way, until they arrived at the safety of the church, led by a brave, blind 10-year-old girl. There are many lessons we can draw from this story. The one I want to focus on is this. It was Anna's trial in her personal life. A trial that caused her suffering. A trial that some would thoughtlessly refer to as a flaw or a shortcoming. It was Anna's trial of blindness that enabled her to save all of those people, including her own family. I believe that the God who is able to use the tortuous sufferings and death of his beloved only begotten Son to save the world is also able, on a cosmically smaller but still important scale, to use our sufferings to make the world a better place, to bring about his great and eternal purposes. He can make us saviors on Mount Zion, not in spite of, but because of what we have suffered, especially if we know the way. When disciples asked, "How shall we know the way?" the Savior responded, "I am the way." How well do we know the way?